Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of News at 10. I'm Stephen NT. Let's first take a look at the day's news highlights. The Board of Management of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust have relieved its IMS General Manager of his position with immediate effect. The Board of the Trustees at a crunch meeting on Wednesday said evidence brought before it shows degrees presented by Caleb Afaglo were fake. The Abeka District Court has rejected an appeal for bail by the counsel for Charles Frimpong, who is charged with murder of a mechanic Yabwedi at Alajo in Accra. This followed an appeal by the prosecution that the police are yet to conclude their investigations. The Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, has urged the Public Services Commission to initiate action for legislative instrument LI from government to prevent the over-politicization of the service. According to CLOGSAG, the lack of such an LI has compelled employees of the civil service and public service to suffer dismissals and termination of appointments whenever there is a change in government. And the Prosthetic and Orthopedic Center, otherwise known as the Limb Fitting Center in the Volta Regional Capital Hall, is in a state of disrepair. The facility, established some 40 years ago, is now a death trap, and residents are demanding its immediate closure. Right, those were our major news highlights. Remember, you can hear us live on 3FM 92.7 and we're streaming on our Facebook page. Up next is the big one. Welcome back. Now, the Board of Management of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust have relieved its MIS General Manager of his position with immediate effect. The Board of Trustees at a crunch meeting on Wednesday said evidence brought before it shows degrees presented by Dr. Caleb Afaglo were fake. Komla Kluche has the following report.
A 4-bullet point release by the board signed by the acting corporate affairs manager, Victoria Gifty Abedu, says Dr. Caleb Afaglo's position as general manager MIS of the trust has been terminated as his degrees to secure the job were fake. SNAIT also says the trust will collaborate with Economic and Organized Crime Office to ensure that those suspected of breaches of the law in respect of the OBS contract are dealt with in accordance with the laws of the land. SNAIT further indicates it would release the names of persons connected with the ITOBS contract in the near future. The release further assured the public that the board of SNAIT will publish the findings of PricewaterhouseCoopers. It will be recalled that the Economic and Organized Crime Office is investigating the General Manager MIS of SNAIT, Dr. Caleb Afaglo, of a fake certificate he used to secure his job. He has since been on interdiction. IOCO has also raided supplier of the software, Perfect Business Services Limited, to retrieve documents it hopes to use to investigate the scandal. Komla Kluche, TV3 News, Accra.
Meanwhile, counsel for dismissed General Manager for IT at SNAIT, Charles Owusu, says his client has authorized him to start processes to drag SNAIT to court. Reacting to a press release relieving Dr. Caleb Afaglo of his position as General Manager MIS by SNAIT Board, lawyer Owusu insisted his client's degrees are genuine and could not be a basis for his dismissal. He said reports about the sacking of his client, Dr. Afaglo, came to him as a surprise, noting that 2 years ago, the board at the time vetted and verify the same degrees that are being questioned now. In a telephone interview with TV3's Edward Kobi, lawyer Charles Owusu was emphatic about an imminent lawsuit that will compel SSNIT to reinstate his client. Let's do some discussions on this development. We have Seth Ablozo, Acting Executive Director of the Labour Policy International, member of the SSNIT scheme, joining us. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Some experts have proposed institutional reforms that will enable the separation of pensions collection from investments at SSNIT. Will this necessarily safeguard our pension funds?
It will to a large extent helping saving pension funds, because as it is now, the fund manager is the same as the collector. We've come to this situation particularly because after the promulgation of the Pensions Act 766, there was to have been very far-reaching pension reforms. In fact, what was instituted them, we had a Pensions Reform Implementation Commission. But with the change of government in 2008, the committee ceased to function. If it had, some of the matters we are hearing of now wouldn't have occurred.
So let's look generally at specific reforms that are necessary in order to make these recommendations that people are talking about more efficient and workable. What do you suggest should be done now in terms of reforms to make SSNIT function a little more efficiently?
Principal will be the decoupling of the role of
pensions collection
and investment. Now, SSNIT also will need a complete overhaul.
When you say overhaul, is it to suggest that the current structure is not fit for purpose?
Parts of the structure worrying. For instance, SSNIT
Which ones in particular?
Yes. SSNIT operates a customer service department, but it has no customers.
I'm not a customer. You are not a customer.
I'm not a customer. We are members.
You're members of the scheme.
Of the scheme. So to find that there is a customer service department suggests that the administrators of the scheme have lost focus or do not appreciate the nature of the institution that they are managing. Then SSNIT continues to operate what they call corporate social responsibility. They go about making donations, in effect,
and supporting events and all of that.
Yes.
All of this comes from
they don't need to.
Our pension funds.
If they appreciate that SSNIT is a trust, that they are holding funds in trust for the members, they won't be doing donations, offering gifts, giving hampers at the end of the year from the couples,
and spending huge sums on board members, travel abroad for their family members and all of that. It's pretty worrying. But what would you say to those who say that perhaps we should go the way of insurance companies where, for example, I have a car, I need to decide whether I'll use insurance company A or insurance company B. Shouldn't it be that when I am a worker, I must decide where I put my pension funds, that I should be able to decide that I would like SSNIT or I would like another trust?
That's an interesting development. You see, the members own the institution, but because our sense of ownership has been eroded over the years, that is why these suggestions are coming. But if we appreciate that we own the institution, then we reform it and managers act appropriately in the interest of those.
I tell you what, I don't even
Yeah.
know how much I will get in pensions if I go on pension, say 18 years away from today. That should be worrying. I mean, I'm working.
No, very worrying.
And SSNIT is taking my money every time, every month. Some
Yeah.
go.
No, you are sending.
I'm sending. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm compelled
Yeah, you are
to send.
good. You are compelled because the state has a responsibility to ensure that to ensure an appreciable level of income security for pensioners. This is not what we are having.
But pension poverty is
Poverty
incredibly
is
bad
is
in Ghana.
markedly significant in the current economy, and people don't approach pension with delight. Elsewhere, people welcome their
Because it will
60th.
be a period of relaxation.
Yes,
You
yes.
get to go on vacation, spend your money
Yeah,
anyhow.
yes.
But if you do that,
No,
in
no,
Ghana,
no.
you're
In
going
Ghana,
to be poor
you
for the
can't-
rest of your
in
life.
Ghana,
so,
you can't do
so
that.
really, I mean, you don't think that it's necessary for us to go the insurance way, like I said,
No.
that you decide that you will use SSNIT. I decide I'll use another trust.
No.
You don't think that will be beneficial to our
that will not be
country's
beneficial.
pension fund management?
No, that will not be beneficial. You see, when the accumulation at one point presents a major leverage in investment.
But it is the same leverage they're using for social and corporate responsibilities and
Yeah.
dashing money
Yes, it's
around
because-
and doing bad
Because we are not
investments.
calling them to attention. We are not calling them to attention. That is why these are happening. But if those there appreciate that they are operating a trust, and for instance, let's say you have 13 children, and in your will, you set up a trust, and you mention only 10 of your children in the trust, and say, for instance, when the last is 21, the funds should be distributed. The trustees you appoint have no business spending a peswa
of that.
on the 3 you have not mentioned. That is how the SSNIT scheme is. It has no business spending any penny, any peswa on anything outside what is provided by law. But the administrators have lost focus over the years. And for instance, if in particular, if we had implemented, there was a forensic audit in President Kufuor's era that made far-reaching recommendations. None of it is in place.
They were not implemented.
They were not implemented.
But did some of those recommendations include the breaking down the scheme into tiers as we have now?
No, they weren't. But the Pensions Reform Implementation Committee, if they had lived on, would have come to this conclusion, which government will certainly had worked on. And I'm saying that if we had worked with the report that was
the forensic
audit, the work of PricewaterhouseCoopers would not be necessary at this time. Maybe even this scandal over the OBS wouldn't have come up. But you said you don't know how much you've contributed or how much you are getting.
Yes, when I go on pension.
A number of unions have also recently called for a review of the method of calculation. They think SSNIT is underpaying persons who go on pension. But you see, these things are happening because we don't have a right to information law. If we had,
but if the laws are compelling me to make a contribution to a fund, and I'm putting money there, what stops the fund managers to have an obligation to me to bring to me perhaps monthly statements so that I get to have a fair idea of what's going into the kitty?
Yes, the biometric, they went biometric recently.
Recently.
By that, you can access information on your contributions if you have a biometric card. But the information deficit is so loud that I think in 2014, in the midst of the disagreements between Labour and SSNIT over the sale of Merchant Bank, the Secretary General of TUC wrote to SNIT requesting some information. SNIT replied.
And you have a copy of that?
Copy of this.
Reply.
It replied and said, in part, in respect of requests numbers 2, 3, and 4, which are contractual documents involving SNIT, SIC Life, Fortis Private Equity Fund, and Merchant Bank, the parties are bound by non-disclosure or confidentiality, and therefore we are unable to disclose any of what you are asking.
And that's within the purview of the law. So you are suggesting the law must change?
I'm suggesting that SNIT erred and that we shouldn't have taken this because the Secretary General, besides being a member, represents the most representative labor organization in Ghana. And as a member of the Board of Trustees, if he's asking for information, you can't say, so for instance, you ask that, at what level was this discussed, that a member of the Board of Trustees is not aware and will be asking for information and be told, we cannot let you see it. So who are those who say we cannot let you see it? Who are they? These are the anomalies. These are
very, very
worrying
important questions that we must be asking. Now let's move away from all the happenings within the SNIT here, and tell me if you are aware of best practices of fund management across the world you think we should be learning from, and what makes them better compared to the SNIT structure we have in Ghana.
Egypt has a commendable system.
And how does theirs work, which makes it different and more commendable than ours?
I can't get the exact details, but labor in Egypt is very satisfied with how it's operated. Ours is a unique system. In fact, benefits portfolio is even not as large as Social Security should provide. We don't have unemployment benefits.
Yes.
We used to have that in the era of General Champon. But even the conditions for qualifying for unemployment benefit were so rigid that
very few
people.
We don't even have aged support where
we don't have aged
above
support.
70 years will get some support from the state, except for the National Health Insurance where they get exemptions.
Yes, but you see, if again, if members appreciate that, and managers appreciate that the monies that go into the fund are for those on whose behalf the monies are made, and the representatives of on the board, and with the reform and the implementation of Act 766, labor and pensioners representation now came up to be the majority representation on the board of SNIT. And it's surprising that with a majority representation, SNIT will be doing things just like that.
Just like that.
And recently, also with the new board, they put out an advert inviting tenders for the supply of luxury diaries for 2018.
Right.
And you ask yourself, what is happening?
What is happening?
Luxury diaries.
Are you getting some? Am I getting
some?
Yes,
but luxury for who?
For who?
SNIT doesn't have to spend even a penny on any luxury item. So again, the new board needs to sit back, and I would say that they should cancel that tender.
You think that they should learn from these events?
Yes,
and
not only that,
that
but they should cancel that tender for luxury diaries. They can order diaries, but not luxury items. No luxury items anywhere. No travels by business class. All travels by SNIT officials should be by economy class.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Seth Aploso, we're grateful for your time. I know that the pensions issues will keep on and on. We'll never get finished, but we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Seth Aploso is the Acting Executive Director for the Labour Policy International and a member of the SNIT scheme. I'm Stephen Enti. You're still watching News at 10. You can hear us live on 3FM 92.7 in Accra and on our affiliates in Tamale and in Wa. We have more news for you. Please stay. Welcome back. Now, government has suspended the implementation of new sulfur levels for petroleum products from the beginning of this month. The National Petroleum Authority, NPA, started implementing the new requirement after pressure from some interest groups. Importers were required to bring in products with lower sulfur levels of 50 ppm instead of the 500 and 1,000 ppm that were already in the system. The action, according to the Energy Ministry, had been necessitated by cost implications. Right, let's quickly get onto the telephone lines and speak with Duncan Amoah, who is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, who's joining us now. Ms. Amoah, thank you very much. So quickly, tell me, what do you make of this move by government?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, Ms. Amoah? Right, Duncan Amoah is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. We'll try to re-establish contact with him pretty shortly, and we'll continue with the discussion. But government has actually suspended the implementation of a new sulfur levels for petroleum products from the beginning of the year. The NPA started implementing this new requirement after pressure came from some interest groups. Importers were actually required through that to bring in products with lower sulfur levels of 50 ppm instead of the 500 and 1,000 that were normal, that were in the system at the time. Let's quickly get onto the phone lines now. We do have Duncan Amoah, Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, joining us. Ms. Amoah, before we lost you, I was asking what you make of this move by government to suspend the introduction of lower sulfur ppm fuel onto the Ghanaian market. Right, this is News at 10. We apologize for the interruptions there. We were unable to get Duncan Amoah on the telephone to have a conversation, but we'll try and bring him on, so we'll continue this important discussion. Away from that, President Akufo-Addo has challenged Ghanaians to take keener interest in the tenets of the Constitution to enhance civic responsibilities and good governance. He was speaking at the launch of the University Civic Challenge, an inter-university quiz at the University of Ghana, Legon.
The maiden edition of the Inter-University Debate Championship seeks to promote good citizens among in-school youth using the electronic constitution quiz competition. 16 universities have been drawn from all 10 regions across the country to contest. Dean of the School of Information and Communication Studies of the University of Ghana, Audrey Gajakpo, lauded the initiative, urging the citizenry to be active participants in the governance of the country. Initiators of the program, the National Commission for Civic Education, is confident the competition will instill the spirit of patriotism in the youth.
It has been expounded that the birth of the idea of citizenship was for the survival and well-being of the community, which would be better served if its matters were conducted by a class of individuals who, due to their personal qualities and resources, were valuable to the community as a whole. Therefore, to my mind, good citizenship, or being an active citizen, is premised on the idea of being valuable to one's community and, by extension, to one's country.
The NCC chairperson Josephine Nkrumah appealed for logistical support.
In the face of continued severe logistical constraints, our dedicated staff across the 216 districts of this country and our head office continue to perform their duties diligently. I urge government to provide the Commission with the crucial logistics we require to deliver effectively on our mandate.
President Akufo-Addo urged the citizenry to be abreast of the Constitution to enhance good governance.
It is incumbent on all of us to know and understand the laws governing our country and jealously guard the freedoms and liberties guaranteed us by the Constitution. The study of the Constitution, therefore, should not be left only to students of our various law faculties in universities across the country, nor just to lawyers. As active citizens, we must all be interested in the fundamental law of the land, and be able to speak to issues regarding our human rights and civic responsibilities.
He promised government support for the commission.
This government is committed to resourcing the commission to help it in achieving its mandate. It is important for its credibility in fulfilling its mandate that the commission sheds any lingering perception that it works as an appendage of any particular political party. Its loyalties have to be to the Constitution of the Republic and the good people of Ghana.
Right, and that's how we end News at 10, our last bulletin for the day. Thank you very much for staying with us. There is more news on 3news.com, and thanks for those of you who left your dial on 3FM 92.7. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of our programs, and please check your pensions contributions regularly. Good night.